You are watching ManWorld.
As his intense pressure was still visible, Song-yun realized she was wrong. Sayu stood and announced his leave. She called his name, but he was already walking towards the doorway. Song-yun is now contemplating about her approach to Sau. She realized that she should have avoided approaching him that way. She admitted that it was her fault to think that it would be easy to lure him with money just because of his appearance and his relationship with the Jaibang. Now she realized that she should have approached Sau cautiously and gained his trust. The head sighs in relief and thought that Sau was such a sensitive person. He suddenly fell into his deep thoughts about Sayu. He was unsure if Sayu's family name was Dan, and more importantly than that, he could sense hints of the Goryeo accent in his pronunciation when he spoke. Also Sayu's blue eyes. Could it be that he was the one that the young lady is looking for? He snapped and called Song-yun. He asked if they should talk about the details. Back to Sayu, he felt kind of offended, but at least he got good information, so that's enough for him. And also, it was enough to confirm that Yun Saik made a deal with the Moyong family 20 years ago. Now all he needs to do is to find the place where Yun Saik lives. As he walked outside, he was greeted by a man with bush hair and dirty clothes. Sayu asks who he is. He introduced himself as a level 1 disciple of Jaibang. He was actually ordered by Patriarch Hong to escort him. Outside Taiyuan Ojo Mountain, a man is walking. It was a recognizable aura with his sword placed on his shoulders. There were whispers as if following where Kong Wai is headed to. Up in the bushes, there are 2 disciples that are following Kong Wai. The fat one couldn't resist to ask why they were there when the others were looking for Yomese-ik inside the Taiyuan. What in the world could they look for in those hills? The skinny man shushed him to stop grumbling and that they just needed to follow the orders. His eyes suddenly widened as he stated that no matter how far Kong Wai goes, they must keep their eyes wide open to watch over him. Suddenly he was in pain and was shivering, holding his stomach. The fat one was in shock with his mouth gape open as if it was not the first time it happened. The skinny man ran telling the other one he had a stomach ache, leaving him shouting and asking if it was number 2. I guess it was like the first one. It was such bad timing for him to have a stomach ache, and as he turned his head back to Kong Wai, he was gone. The fat man sweats and panics as he tries to blame the skinny one that they lost track to Kong Wai. They will surely be scolded by Patriarch Hong. While he panics, a familiar aura appears before him while he tries to think how he should go to find Kong Wai. He felt that someone was behind him and assumed that it was his friend. As he was turning to tell him that they are in big trouble because they lost Kong Wai, a tall with the evil aura was right in front of him holding the long sharp sword. It was indeed Kong Wai. He said that it seemed like he was looking for him. Kong Wai was mad and his face shows it. He asks a rat bastard like they were following him. The fat man fell on his butt and shouted. Suddenly, an invisible string was in the air and wrapped around his neck. The man was unsure what it was, but that was his last words. His neck was slashed, causing blood everywhere. He fell on the ground. Kong Wai was disappointed that the man was killed. He had so many questions regarding why would a beggar from Jaibang come all the way there, and what was he looking for, or is it true that the beggar was following him and who was behind it? He stared and looked behind to see who killed the beggar. The air strings looked like from the man in white cloak. It was the Iron Archer. Kong Wai seemed lost and couldn't find the Red Water building, so he asked the man to lead him there. Additionally, he ordered the man that there might still be other beggars left. So he must search the place thoroughly because they can't let anyone find out the location of the Red Water building. The Iron Archer man quickly followed the order. Kong Wai is now following the Archer man. He laughed as he remembered that he was indebted to him. Behind them on the bush, the skinny man, whom Kong Wai referred to as another beggar, trembles while holding his mouth to avoid any noises. He cried as he thought about avenging his friend's death. Kong Wai and the archer continued walking downhill. Kong Wai scoffed. No wonder he couldn't find the place because it's hidden and completely invisible from beneath. Meanwhile, architecture is in sight. Known as the Black Merchant's Taiyuan branch office, the Red Water building. There is an open field at the center filled with people. In the chair that looks like in a higher position asked if it was the products that they will hand over to the 5 Dragon League, obviously referring to the people at the center. The servant agreed that as per the man's order, their basics have been perfectly formed and that the brainwashing was also done. they're perfect to carry out any order. The servant suggests that if they let them practice martial arts for a couple of years, they will become the best forces to reckon with. The man sitting seems unsatisfied, saying that they're not bad but something is missing. The man sitting was none other than the head of the black merchants, Yom Saik. Saik felt that they lack something with their forces, but the servant assures him that all the products have been transformed into physical bodies that are suitable for mastering martial arts, and are in their optimal condition. Depending on their utilization, they're capable of being a force that's in either wield weapons or become a secret force. The bodies were shown, and he continued saying that those were one of the best products created by the Red Water Building every 20 years. Saik frowned, saying that's not what he meant. Of course they're pretty useful, but he can't see any top qualities in them. Just like that girl. A flashback memory of that little girl under the moonlight with long dark hair. He was dismayed by the fact that he lost her in the transit, and if she practiced martial arts properly, she should have attained an extraordinary ability by now. He grit his teeth, asking why she had to run away to that place. What place could it be? Kong Wai appeared with the archer. He asks the archer if they were the people he was talking about. Before answering, Saik knew him and asked what brought him there, and that he should have gone to the great heavenly merchant group. Kong Wai answered boastfully that before he destroyed that place, he needed Saik's help. The archer man interrupts and corrects Kong Wai that by help, he means the beggar from the jibang on his tail earlier. Saik frowned. He got curious what they mean about beggars from the jibang. He was quite in disbelief if Kong Wai was being followed. Kong Wai sat and calmly narrated what happened. He admitted that he was indeed being followed, but the beggar was alone, or so he thought. And he couldn't believe that there would be a manor in the Ojo Mountain. More than that, he added that the archer has taken good care of it and there's no trace of another companion. The archer squinted his eyes, saying he didn't find any trace of the companion at all. So it's not a problem, Kong Wai replied while looking at him side-eyed. Saik looks uneasy, that maybe the jibang has suspected something. He then voiced out that maybe it's time for them to remove the Red Water Building from that place. Both of them were shocked by Saik's remark. The archer was also hesitant because Saik had been developing that facility for 20 years, and it would be such a waste to do that. Saik fell into deep thought, that although it's true that it would be regrettable to remove a place that has been developed for 20 years, they have to give up decisively when it's needed. If the beggar of Jibang has been there once, then it means they might come again anytime. After his thought, he ordered the archer to bring the products to the 5 Dragon League AR Dawn tomorrow, and that he will prepare everything in advance. They shouldn't be worried, as long as there are conflicts among the various clans in Murim, and as long as the confrontation between the Ming and the Mongol continues, the slave trade will continue. There isn't a single organization under the 5 Dragon Leagues that can make as much profit as the black merchants, so they can't abandon them. They won't be able to ignore the lure of the huge amount of money that comes from the slave trade using children. He snapped out of reality and remembered to ask Kong Wai what kind of help he wanted from him. Kong Wai suddenly puts a smile on his face as he shows eagerness to ask Saik to look for something for him. At the Jibang's Taiyuan branch office, a man on his knees was surrounded by the people. At the top of the stairs was the elder and Sayu. The elder repeated the information about the man whose name is Li Geology has been killed on the Ojo Mountain, outside the Taiyuan. The man a while ago nodded and said that they were only following Kong Wai as per his order. The elder was angry because while he left his place as he needed to relieve himself, Li Jiol was killed by Kong Wai and his companions. The skinny man cried his heart out. He was devastated by what happened to his friend. He asked for punishments because he couldn't do anything and just trembled in fear even when his closest friend was killed. He regretted everything for being unable to prevent Li Geology's death. Sayu, with his emotionless face, comforted him by saying that the mess couldn't be prevented, so he mustn't blame himself. The elder added that the one responsible for Liu Jiol's death are Kong Wai and his companions. He assures the skinny man, whose name is Jiang Du, that it wasn't his fault at all. A man also recalls the information about the Ojo Mountain having a building in that remote area. It sure is related to Yun Saik. He encouraged them to attack before the bastards hid their traces. He also said that they've dispatched those who are good at searching and they're searching the whole Ojo Mountain area as of the moment, They will hear the news from them soon. The elder gritted his teeth, saying that if their building is on the Ojo Mountain, then no wonder they haven't been able to find it before, because who would have thought that those bastards would be in such a remote area? He was more curious about Saek's plan because he heard that he was involved in trafficking children. Suddenly, one of their disciples came running towards them while calling the patriarch. He was informing them that there's a letter from the search group. It says that they have found the place where Saek is. He was shouting at the top of his lungs to avenge the unfair death of one of their friends. The elder stood and told everyone that they can't let that matter slide, because one of Jaibang's disciples has died. He then calls out the branch office head, Jang, to stay at their office and be prepared for unexpected situations, especially to keep his eyes on the great, heavenly merchant group. The elder feels uneasy. He thinks that something is about to happen. Jang stood there and understood his assignment. The elder showed a powerful stance to deliver a message to his disciples. He yelled and said that he understands that all of them are angry because one of their friends died, but he pointed out that it had all happened because the man was just following his order, and so the elder feel responsible and angry for his death. The elder looked serious and continued delivering his message. He understands that they want to wring Kong Y's neck, but he is famous in Gango as a killer. Therefore, sending disciples who have not mastered martial arts yet will only add to unnecessary casualties. And because of that, they will only send the level 2 disciple and the searchers. All disciples howl together, showcasing their eagerness to mourn the death of Li Jiol through that fight. The elder glanced at Sayu, calling him the king of war, and asked what he was going to do. Sayu answered him by telling him that he needs to meet personally with Saek, and that he will also join the fight. Sayu fell into deep thoughts. Not only human trafficking, but Saek also have an agreement regarding child trafficking with the Moyong family for 20 years. The information that Song Yun gave fits perfectly well. Sayu looked at the elder and told him that no matter how powerful their troop is, there will definitely be a big loss if they fight against Kong Wai. Sayu thinks that he has a way to solve it himself. The elder stared at Sayu with determination. He replied saying that there are some things that they must do even though they have predicted the loss. A disciple of the Jaibang has been killed, and it has become the Jaibang's problem. The two of them look away as if they were done being serious and back to being themselves. At last, the two of them looked at each other once again with a smile on their faces, indicating that they are ready to fight alongside each other. In Mount Ojo, the Red Water Building, the elder showed in front of the gate. He looked at the building and can't deny that it's wonderful. The guard at the gate is confused as to why there is a beggar at that hour. The elder looked at it in detail and was even shocked as he looked closer because the building is incredibly huge. He was wondering what kind of advantages they can obtain in that place that they build such a huge building. The elder did not lose any seconds and walked casually toward the guards. He scratched the back of his head and asked the guards to give him a bowl of warm food. He feels hungry because of all that screaming he made. He assures them that if one day the guards come to Jaibang, he will treat them properly and give them a bowl of sagu soup. The soldiers suddenly became alert after hearing the word Jaibang. One of the soldiers grabbed his sword and asked if the elder is related to the Jaibang beggar who died earlier during the day. When the soldier was about to pull out his sword, the elder's hand kept it in place. He called the soldier a bastard because he was only asking for food, but they were immediately trying to kill him. The soldier cursed him. The elder grinned while saying that he doesn't need something that's inedible and full of brutality, so they might just keep that to themselves. After that sentence, he blew them off instantly, causing a wreck to their gate. The elder cursed his disciple who had died and said that it was true, he didn't feed him properly when he was alive. But, of course, he is still the patriarch, and because he had gone far away into the afterlife, even though it's not a feast, at least he'll give him some warm food. The elder screamed and food. Suddenly, his disciples appeared determined to win the fight. They were all there for the same reason. It's to avenge the death of their friend. The soldiers were also prepared to fight as they counter their attack. They were also protecting the place their whole life, and to be infiltrated with some beggars is quite hurtful. Of course, they planned to stop and kill each one of them. The center of the building became a battlefield between the disciples and Saldi of their hard work practicing. All of them are fighting except the elder and Sayu. The elder honestly told him that there is nothing much left for him to do. He also added that even if their enemy called themselves the Black Merchants, in the end, they're just a bunch of merchants. And even if they dispatch their warriors, in the end, they will still be overwhelmed by his troop. The elder smiled happily because he could see the result of the fight. Sayu complimented Jaibang's ability and was definitely amazing. As well as the one leading the Jaibang also has an amazing ability. The elder thrust the face of a soldier as it was going on his way. He was grinning and definitely liked the way Sayu complimented him, saying that Sau is not only great in martial arts but also great at complimenting others. He added that Jaibang is indeed amazing and admitted that he got his talents thanks to the Jaibang. The two of them walk in the middle of the battlefield as the elder continued to talk, saying it was too bad that he doesn't have a disciple whom he can pass on all his outstanding talents. He mentioned a name, Sungwoo, saying that that kid is perfect for it. Sayu was remembering the name. Battle was still happening left and right while they continued their chit-chats. The elder was actually planning to take Sungwoo as his disciple before he left for Shenyang. Sayu agreed that he also thinks that Sungwoo has enough traits and talent for it. The elder couldn't agree more. He also thinks that if that kid trains properly, he will reach an extraordinary level. He guaranteed that Sungwoo would be an excellent beggar. Then, he asked Sayu what Sungwoo said. Sayu was also curious. The elder told him that Sungwoo said that a beggar would forever beg for food, and was even asked how does the elder call it excellent. Sayu just laughed it out. He was heartbroken by Sungwoo's remarks that he almost cried. Suddenly, one soldier came running while pointing the sword towards them. He was aiming for the elder's throat. The elder was unfazed by the sudden threat in front of him as he continued talking about the past. He told Sau that of course he can't say that all beggars are excellent, but one thing for sure is that the beggars in Jaibang are built different. Even though they have to keep begging for food, they can still live freely without any problems. Even though they don't have home, they can still have the whole world as their home. So there's nothing weighing on their minds. Also, even in times of crisis in their country, they still stand together and not be ashamed to yearn for the prosperity of the country and the welfare of the people. So, there's nothing more excellent than that. The elder simply kicked the soldier's bare face with his one foot. The soldiers scream in agony, feeling the pain of the impact. Still holding his feet up, the elder giggled. Just because he got upset with Sungwoo, he gave him all those excuses. He felt embarrassed. He kicked the soldier effortlessly, still talking about Sungwoo, about him wanting to be a merchant. He smiled and looked so happy while storytelling. He remembered that Sungwoo said no matter how excellent it was, a beggar would still be a beggar, and that he wanted to give a comfortable life to his mother who had been suffering her whole life. Sungwoo has such clear thoughts at such a young age. It's reasonable that he wanted him in the first place. Sangyu smiled as well, thinking that Sungwoo wanted to be a merchant is a nice call. On the other hand, Sa-ik is already infuriated with the Jaibang troops. Tomorrow morning all their products will be delivered, so there will be no traces left. But the beggars suddenly appeared. He was already pissed and was looking for the underworld devil sword. The archer who was beside him answered that Kong Wai left for Taiwan after receiving an object from Sa-ik. Kong Wai said that he will destroy the great heavenly merchant group before dawn. Sa-ik was speechless. Sa-ik stared at him, asking if he was just going to stay still when they are currently facing such a big trouble. He reminded him that if they are defeated by those beggars, the Five Dragon League will also suffer a great loss. The archer seems to have a plan. He was actually waiting for a chance because there is one warrior among the beggars that he hardly believes to be there. So he can't just fight him rashly and ruin everything. He sips from his cup as he continues, saying that aside from giving Sa-ik help, he was actually feeling disappointed as of the moment. He was disappointed with Sa-ik because he didn't even plan for any countermeasures. It was obvious that those kinds of situations are predictable. He placed his cup down. In the end, it was a transaction between two groups. So even if the place is destroyed or even if Sa-ik die there, the agreement between the Five Dragon League and the Black Merchants wouldn't be broken merely because of that. Even though the Taiyuan branch is a place Sa-ik has expanded for 20 years. In the end, it's just a pawn on a jangi board. Jangi board is a Korean chessboard. The archer glanced at Sa-ik. He reminded him to keep it in his mind that from now on, the Red Water Building is Saek's personal business. The Black Merchant and the Five Dragon League have absolutely no relation with it. Saek gritted his teeth and cursed. He thought and asked himself if it would just end like that if the archer left with the products. He knew well that the archer already had plans to abandon him. He won't just stand still and be defeated. Saek walked towards the balcony to see the battlefield. From there, he let his voice be heard by the people. He discriminated against their appearances and called the beggars of the Jibang nasty. The elder and Sayu just silently stood there. Saek asks their reason for coming to his manor so impolitely and orders them to retreat. The elder was not threatened at all. He informed him that his disciple was killed at Ojo Mountain by one of Saek's subordinates. Sayu now meets Saek. His eyes were piercing. He remembered that Saek was the one who had taken his master's daughter as a slave 20 years ago. Saek was also in rage. He was asking for evidence that his subordinate was indeed the one who killed the elder's disciple. The elder remained calm and told him that he cannot evade since they do have a witness, and if Saek is so sure of his innocence, then he should let them investigate the building. Saek stared down at them and became territorial, saying that they misunderstand something because it is his land and Red Water Building is his place. There's no reason for them to be investigating anything there. The elder glared at him seriously. With that being said, there's no other way but to investigate using force. Saek challenges them to do it if they can. He sticks his tongue out and it has a tiny wooden whistle. He blows and it lets out a screeching sound. Suddenly, there are loud footsteps approaching the elder's disciple. Then, a troop that was in oddly perfect alignment appeared in cloaks. The disciples and Saek's troop stood in front of each other. The disciples remain alert and confused. The troop looks weird and doesn't wear any expression. Their eyes are round and glowing. The disciples were eager to move them out of the way, and one of them launched an attack that if they didn't move away, he'd kill them all. He swung his weapon and hit one of the troops. He was shocked by what he saw when the person he thumped accidentally removed the cloak. He grabbed his weapon back, and the one in the cloak was none other than a girl. Sayu as well as the elder was surprised by the revelation of a young kid under the cloak. Saek grinned like a devil. He giggled and told them to give it a try if they dare to investigate the place by force. Because if they want to, then they have to kill all those troops first, which are full of young kids. But of course, Saek was in doubt if a group like them who feign as a righteous people would be able to kill young kids. He let out an evil laugh and ordered the young kids to attack them now. He also told everyone to ease their mind and informed them that the young kids couldn't feel pain because they have been brainwashed. That made Sayu raged. He could not believe Saek did that. Behind Saek, the archer spoke. He told him that he was using the product as a shield and that it is a violation of the agreement. He asked Saek if he can handle the consequences. Saek was in silence for a moment, then glanced behind him, still the wooden whistle in his mouth. He replied that he was quite sad about what the archer mentioned earlier. His eyes darkened and uttered the words, "I can't be the only one who dies, right?" Still grinning, he asks if the archer doesn't want the product to be damaged. Then he should show him his skills. The archer was offended but did not refuse. He called the white swordsman and immediately appeared beside him. He ordered them to deal with the disciples. The swordsman said yes. The swordsman immediately jumped and prepared to engage in a fight. He pulled out his sword with a clunking sound and swiftly jumped along the other swordsmen. Sayu was quite surprised to see 12 of them. They all engaged towards them while pointing their swords. They were instructed to kill those infiltrating beggars. When they reached the group, one of the disciples was already cut in half. They all stopped and gasped by the sudden attack. The disciples guessed if it was the white swordsman. His white cloak had a splash of blood, and yes indeed, it was the armed force of the Five Dragon League, the white swordsman. They all looked wicked with skeleton-like faces. One of them instructed his fellow swordsmen to not leave any survivors. They all rushed forward following the said instruction. The fight was clearly unbalanced. With the agility of the swordsman, the disciples were easily cut in half. Numerous shouts of agony are heard. At the distance, Sau was observing silently to the young kids. He thought to himself that it was strange that they have such long hands and feet and are extremely thin to the point where it wouldn't be strange if they fainted right away. Their bodies were forcibly made to be suitable for mastering martial arts. He looked up and down to their bodies, examining every part of them. He added that their skeletons were forcefully reshaped. That's why they were able to improve so much in such a short period of time. And not only that, they have been brainwashed, so they don't have any will of their own. Long face with bruised face, what a tragedy they must have been through. Even when their bodies trembled in fear, they couldn't run away without orders. Sayu knew that there's no way to make them return to their original state. Those kids will die before they even reach their 20s, he added. Sayu is in a rage. His blue flames are slowly showing he couldn't handle it anymore, especially thinking if Saik has done it as well to his master's daughter. However, the elder knew better. That's why he held Sayu's shoulder to calm him down, because if he interferes now, things might get more complicated. He informed Sayu that those men are the White Swordsmen, the most elite armed force of the 5 Dragon Leagues. They are people who are not afraid of facing death for the sake of the 5 Dragon League. Additionally, if the White Swordsmen have come forward as a whole, then that means they intend to kill everyone there in order to keep their secret. They wouldn't care even if they had to kill all the disciples of Jaibang. The elder's face became serious. Sayu, without glancing, asks the elder who is the head of the Jaibang if he would stand still while things get out of control. He replied that of course there will be a little conflict at first, but soon enough they'll compromise on the appropriate lines. The Jaibang and the 5 Dragon League have always kept an eye on each other, but they will try to maintain the alliance until Mongolia is completely ousted, because they always take advantage of each other. Gango is such a kind place. Everyone shouts for justice, he added. Then, a loud explosion occurs. Continuing, it's only for their own profit and their own political gain. They'll keep twisting it there over and over again. A scene where one of the swordsman's sword was cutting through a wooden weapon. He reminded Sayu that as soon as he involved himself in that matter, the 5 Dragon League will target him, or they might even pass all the responsibility to him. Sayu asks the elder if he couldn't hear it because he can hear the cries of those kids. He replied as if he didn't hear what the elder was talking about. He doesn't know if the thing that scares them is the Jaibang or because of some other reason, but Sayu knew that it was not their intention to stand there. Sayu cannot hold it anymore. He was covered in intense blue light and you can feel the intensity of his power. He doesn't care if he is going to be targeted by the 5 Dragon League. He said while ignoring each other's evil deeds for political purposes. How long are they going to ignore the pain of others? Even if Midland is supposed to be such a kind of place, he will still continue to do what his heart tells him. The elder was left dumbfounded. He repeated in his head what Sayu said about doing what his heart tells him to. He agreed because that's what humans are supposed to do. The battle still continued. Just like what the King of War said, those children's instinctive fears have been suppressed by repeated brainwashing. Similarly, all those years, he also didn't want to get caught in trouble, so it seems that his body has gotten used to avoiding it. The elder brings out his rope. He couldn't also believe in himself for still thinking about profits while his disciples are about to be wiped out. He definitely learned a lesson from Sayu. The elder slashed his rope and walked towards the battlefield. He told Sayu that he will leave Saik to him because he remembered that Sayu has something to say to him. He assures him that he will fight the White Swordsman. The elder hurls his rope, which is known as the beggar's whip. It was so powerful that rocks were sent flying. As soon as the rope was released, it targeted one of the swordsmen and his hand was caught by the rope. He let out a scream while the elder put an effort by pulling it. He wondered if Sayu was able to keep his faith because he's strong or if he was strong because he always kept his faith. The elder jumped high, still holding his weapon, and swiftly kicked his opponent's face. Continually wondering that whatever the reason may be, he had made the elder feel ashamed. The sword was sent flying. The elder glared at his opponent in disappointment, because a swordsman should never lose his sword. He reminded him and kicked the sword towards his opponent. He was pierced on the wooden pillar, coughing blood. His fellow swordsmen became alert. They already knew that the elder is not an ordinary man. The elder screamed and called the attention of his disciples. He asked if they wanted to join their late old friend in the afterlife because apparently they were fighting the White Swordsmen one-on-one who are obviously way ahead in regards to skills. He slashed his rope with determination. reminding his disciples that Jaibang is a group of beggars, and that beggars must behave like beggars because it's only right for beggars to fight as a group. Hearing the elders' command to attack the white swordsmen together, they immediately launch forward. The swordsmen indeed have greater skills, but the beggars were also greater in number. They circled around and surrounded the swordsmen, pointing their weapons towards them. The elder was in the middle and he slashed his rope towards the enemy. He also asks them if they haven't seen the beggars standing together. Well, the beggars' move that they executed was called the enemy restraining position only in Jaibang. The elder slashed them right in the middle and they dodge it. The swordsmen were starting to panic. Before the beggars reached them, they must defeat them one by one. Before he could move, a beggar was already behind him, ready to pierce him with his weapon. He hit him on his back, causing the swordsman to bend his back and felt the pain. He swirled and another attack came from the beggar. But with the agility of the swordsman, he was able to recover quickly that he stood on top of the beggar's weapon. He jumped and cursed them. He was desperate to kill all of them in an instant. But then as the swordsman jumped, one of the beggars used the shoulder of his fellow mate and jumped higher than their opponents. He was also desperate to not be killed by the swordsman. He launched an attack towards him with his sword. He swung his weapon and targeted the opponent's head, causing a crack on his head. That's how much power a beggar has. He fell on the ground and the beggar returned to his fellow mate's shoulders. And right there, the Jaibang's enemy restraining position was fully showcased. There are those who stayed on the ground supporting the weight of those on top. Looking at their enemy restraining position, they look united and determined to defeat those who come on their way with ill intentions. Sayu looked at them in relief. Seeing the beggars are powerful made him feel at ease. The patriarch of Jaibang, the elder, was incredible, seeing him turned into a king of war in a second. Now it's his turn to deal with his own enemy. On the other hand, Sai can feel the pressure. They are slowly being defeated. He cursed by the idea of it. He cannot believe that the iron swordsman couldn't get rid of some beggars. Sayu looked at him. He let out his power, and then again he was covered with his intense blue aura. Seems like they have a lot to talk about. The archer took action by the sudden threat approaching them. He thought that Sayu was related to the Jaibang because he helped the elder, but he did not expect him to intervene directly. He let out his arrows and pulled the string of his bow, and in instants he released the arrow quickly. He smiled and was ready to start the battle. Under the moonlight, Sayu jumped high using his blue bolt light. He stopped mid-air as he gazed upon Saik that was being irritated by the battle between the swordsman and the Jaibang. Sayu immediately launched towards him. He was fast like thunder. Saik wasn't aware of Sau's presence as he continually complains. At the corner of his eyes, he noticed Sayu getting closer. Saik was taken back and fell on the floor as he looked at Sayu face to face. He called him and Saik was trembling in fear. He didn't have any idea who he was. Sayu was indeed frightening, with his voice that was hair-raising and his presence that was engulfed with superiority. He ordered Saik to answer his questions, and the first thing he asked was if he remembered Han Sang-ah from 20 years ago when he brought the child to the Moyong family. Sayu's blue eyes were crystal clear. You can see its rage. Before Saik could answer, behind him was a familiar presence. The archer. He knew that he would meet Sayu one day but didn't expect it to be like that. He smiled and was pleased to see Sayu in person. He quickly pulled his bow and arrow, then shot it towards Sayu. Sayu was caught off by how fast the moving arrow was. Sayu felt the arrow and his whole body was pushed outside. Surprisingly, he landed swiftly while holding the arrow in his stomach. He did not know how to react, and in that moment the archer moved fast and dashed to catch up to Sayu. Saik was beyond happy. He complimented how great the Iron Archer was and that his skills are worthy of its fame for being the top 3 archers in the world. He laughed as if he just won the fight. You can see the archer's eyes glowing and was really fired up. He knew his arrow could penetrate a smelted diamond and a firm shield chi. But all of that was wasted because Sayu actually caught it. He wasn't hit by it. He stood there while holding the arrow as if it was just a regular one. He was quite concerned because an arrow that fast was dangerous. Sayu was slightly impressed. It was a good judgment for the archer to wait quietly for an opportunity. He dropped the arrow. Sayu pitied the archer because that opportunity was his first and last chance to kill him. Sayu looked at him with his bright blue eyes. His immense power could easily shake his opponent. The archer trembles as he feels the intense pressure towards him. He knew that Sayu's QI was powerful, but he did not expect it to be a lot stronger. Sayu turned into a completely different person. He was covered with blue and gold light. Such power could wipe out his opponent easily. The archer was confused as to why he feels Sayu's pressure similar to the Four Honors. He thought that if he kept him alive the Four Honor well, scratch that he meant that Sayu will be at par with the Three Tyrants. Sayu was in rage. The pressure was getting intense. The archer was rattled. His sweats were coming down from his face and his throat was becoming dry each time passes by. He has to pull himself together because any time he could die. Finally, he pulled an arrow and jumped high to position himself for a shot towards Sayu. He steadied his hands and put his life on the line as if it was his last fight. As he was midair, he made sure that he kept his promise to Sayu, that is, to fight him with his best skills. He shot his arrow, but unfortunately, Sayu could easily read his arrow's movement and was able to dodge. Although he was able to step away, the ground that the arrow hit was damaged. Sayu did not expect the archer's sudden movement because most archers distance themselves from their opponents, but with him he was actually narrowing their distance. The archer prepared for another attack. His body was covered in gold light and his eyes were full of determination. You can see it in his eyes, how eager he is to end Sayu's life. He told Sayu that every martial arts has its own techniques and his archery was no exception. It was his best distance and whatever his eyes see falls within his territory. He pulled his bow string and engulfed his arrow with his power. He made sure that Sayu could not escape his golden heavenly eyes. Sayu was unfazed. He observed the archer's movements and would take countermeasures for it. The archer was also unfazed by Sayu's immense power. His strong-willed is what makes him more powerful. He is committed to piercing through Sayu. He fired his arrow that was covered with his golden light and released his Tenyunshur technique. His arrows multiplied, passing through any barriers that's on its way. Pierced through walls. On the corner, Saek silently watched their battle. He couldn't deny how marvelous it was. Such a powerful technique. Sayu reacted quickly and dodged all his deadly arrows. Saek knew that it takes only a little time for the archer to fire an arrow, so it's possible to fire 10 arrows in a row. He was appalled. The archer's power exceeds the destructive power of a swordsman with just one arrow. It's just like the underworld devil sword's arrogance. There's no one at par with their skills even among the 5 dragon leagues. That's why the archer first pulled his arrow in a demonstration. Now Saek has an idea about the archer's ability. He knew that it was no ordinary man, but that means the opponent was strong and he had put his life at risk. He felt the fear crawling up to his system. He knew how bad the current situation is. That's why he must stay on the corner, hidden from the eyes of their opponent. White Sayu was dodging the arrows. Up ahead was a pole and suddenly got an idea. In his mind, he didn't care about dodging like that but realized that it's not fun doing that. He grabbed the pole and rotated his whole body to the opposite side and swung swiftly. Sayu was now having fun by his sudden exchange attacks. The archer released another arrow but failed to hit Sayu. Before Sayu could reach his place, he jumped backward. He agreed to what Sayu said about exchange attacks, and it was a relief for Sayu as well that they are both on the same page. As soon as Sayu's feet touched the ground, he swiftly bounced right back up just like thunder. Sayu is now launching towards his opponent while his opponent keeps on moving backward. The archer was impressed by Sayu's quick decision to switch from attacking to defending in no time. The archer became even more fired up, releasing every skill he had to win the battle. Launching another attack, he pulled his bow string and reminded Sayu to take it seriously, because even if he has to keep on switching, you won't be able to escape from his arrows. The archer released his 10 arrows technique for the second time, all in speed. This time, you did not dodge away, but instead he challenged himself and dodged the attack while he moved forward, narrowing their distance. Sayu was dancing, swiftly moving through the gaps of each arrow to avoid getting struck by them. As he easily cleared his pathway, the archer ran inside the building while Sayu chased him. They were both moving fast like they were one with the air. The two of them reached inside the building, but little did Sayu know. There was a trap. The archer extended his arms and a silver string appeared. It was wrapped around the pillar of the building that blocked Sayu's way. He did not expect silver strings and Sayu was caught off guard. But he reacted quickly and was able to step back from the trap. His opponent grinned though he caught Sayu, but the only part of Sayu that was slashed was his hair. He now understood the archer's movements earlier because it was strange for someone like him who uses arrows to move to a narrow place. Sayu recalls the archer's strategy a while ago. From the beginning, the archer narrowed his distance with him at a certain level so that he could run after him and lead Sayu to the building, and it turns out that all his movement had been planned. On the other side was where the archer stood. For him, it was some light entertainment. Well, for him, it looked fun when the underworld's devil sword was playing with his silver wire. He told Sayu that he experienced it before. He felt like his fun was spoiled when his mind was easily read by others. Sayu scoffs in disbelief that all of it was just an entertainment for the archer. Using his two fingers forming like a scissor, he cut through the string. He was in disbelief to think that the archer thought of it as an entertainment wherein the children they sold. They're forced to live with adult bodies because they have reshaped their skeletons forcefully. But judging from their faces, they haven't even reached the age of 13 or 14. Sayu touched the string and it suddenly sparked and his power flowed through the silver string. He believes that the children should be like children. But those children's eyes were filled with hostility, he added. The strings that were wrapped around the pillar suddenly wrecked. The more power flows, the greater damage it costs. He continued saying that maybe it was hostility towards all the human beings in the world, because those children who have been raised like beasts for several years in their care have lost their ability to trust others anymore. Sayu was infuriated that the situation was really bad, and yet the archer found it as entertainment. The path that was blocked a while ago was easily cleared. The archer's silver string slowly vanished. He was stunned. He couldn't grasp the situation and finds it impossible because the silver string is smelted with diamond. He was confused that you could easily vanish his technique in an instant, and to mention only with just his fingers. Then instantly he was reminded by his fight with Kong Wai. It was the same, it can only be applied by the one who has practiced the flow of qi for a long time. It simply can't be done just with a strong QI. His eyes widened and was clearly in fear. On the other hand, as much as Sayu hated his guts, his power couldn't hide his anger towards people like him. He described each one of them. One person is a lunatic killer, the other one is a slave trader who trades children, and then there's the archer, the one who thinks all those evil deeds are just some entertainment. His presence became darker and darker, releasing his blue bolt sparks. His crystal blue eyes could easily kill as he utters that fighting against people like them doesn't feel good at all. Sayu quickly launched an attack towards the archer. He was moving fast, chasing his opponent, using both of their abilities to attack and dodge. The archer kept moving backward while Sayu kept narrowing their distance, although he didn't really understand why the archer kept running to a narrower space. Sayu moved closer, but the archer was already pointing his bow and arrow towards him. He reminds Sayu that it was him who mentioned that all his movements are planned and he better try to avoid his arrows in that narrow hallway. Sayu's face shows no fear. He has no plans to avoid them. Then he held on to a pillar, releasing his thunder QI. His power was so powerful that it caused explosions. The archer was speechless and could not believe that it was possible. His eyes widened and all he could do was curse. The entire building was slowly collapsing due to Sayu's technique. Fortunately for the archer, he was able to hold on to his silver string and escape the collapsing building. He swirled and landed safely. Again, they faced each other, and the archer was still in shock that with a single motion of Sayu's hand, a huge explosion occurred and the building was collapsing. Suddenly, he confesses that usually when he uses the GoldenEye heavenly vision, he can see one's QI flow and personality, but he really has no idea what kind of QI Sayu has. And when he thinks of it, they haven't introduced themselves to each other. Then the archer introduced himself as Du Young. People call him the marvelous Iron Archer. Sayu, with his expressionless emotion, brushes his long blue hair and introduces himself that he is from Goryeo. He asks the archer that if he is called the marvelous Iron Archer, then he must have a technique that suits his name. He challenges him to show his true skills. Or rather, he would let himself be killed just like that. The archer grinned. He couldn't believe that he was hearing those words from someone from a small country like Goryeo. He couldn't stop smiling as if he was having the time of his life. Then, without touching the arrow, the archer swiftly lifted his hands and the arrows followed as if it was hearing a command. The archer accepted his challenge and was determined to show his true abilities. What he was doing is called the secret technique, which is the 10 united shots with QI. The situation was getting serious. The archer stepped his foot backward to support his form. Then he pulled his bow string and 10 arrows, each containing his QI, was circling around him. Although it's not like the blade thrust with QI, which can precisely direct the arrow, 10 arrows are fired at once without giving the target any chance to avoid them, and each arrow contains the energy of M. Du Young. The moment it touches the enemy, it will cause a huge explosion. His aura changed and the pressure suddenly got heavier. His eyes turned golden. It is a deadly technique that hardly ever unfolds, because once it is unfolded it will end up with most of the energy. The arrow looked sharp and lightweight. Its edge was sharply pointed and the archer's QI engulfed each one of it. He positioned himself because when he uses 10 united shows with QI, it means that he has made the resolve to end the battle with that attack. He gripped his bow tightly and pulled his bow string confidently. He makes sure that the arrows will follow his target until he dies. Then, he released his technique. The power was so powerful that it made the building vanish. The 10 arrows created a single attack and was like a hurricane. It vanished the things that are caught inside it. The attack was moving fast towards Sayu, but he was unfazed. He was glued to his place and didn't even bother to sweat. Fear was definitely not on Sayu's vocabulary. He greeted his opponent's 10 united technique with a single hand. Sayu was impenetrable. He's not planning on avoiding it, but rather welcoming the attack. His hand sparks and thunder blue bolt became visible. He was also releasing his technique to counter the attack. In a glimpse of an eye, the arrows were individually corrupted by Sayu's blue light. The archer couldn't react fast as his arrows slowly vanished before his eyes. He blasted his opponent's arrows like a feather. A loud explosion was heard. The archer became a shadow that no one can recognize. That powerful technique was the heavenly strike. Then a black place, with a blue circle lighting, ghost eyes and the devil's hand. The one who experiences the ghost eyes and the devil hand will definitely die. It was Sau, reaching his hand to his target. The surroundings were in chaos. Sayu's eyes didn't show mercy. As he was about to reach his opponent, the archer grabbed his arrow and released it. Amidst the powerful presence of Sayu, he was also reaching his limits to not let himself die that easily. No matter how fast his opponent is, his arrow will pierce Sayu's heart faster. His power flows in the arrow, as it strikes through Sayu's heart in an instant. However, his arrow does not stand a chance. Releasing another technique, the disperse hand protection. His arrow was like a toy in Sayu's fingertips. He grabbed it firmly and poured his power on the arrow, then struck it back at the archer. His hat fell onto the ground while his head became the target in a dart game. He was quite confused and his brain could not register what had happened. His eyes dilated as his mouth gaped open. Sayu told him that his arrow will never pierce his heart because he won't be able to use his bow anymore. Sayu looked at him poorly. Chapter 61. He cursed as he felt his head cut open. His eyes widened while mouth gaped open. He felt his knees tremble, lost balance and knelt as his plan was crushed. He knew he had no chance and already gave up. It was over just like that. The arrow still pierced through his head. Sayu finished him elegantly. He was disappointed that his fun was ruined because everything ended so easily. And one thing he's curious about is that if someone like the archer's death will also be an entertainment, since he considers the death and pain of others as entertainment.